we've talked about holding on to an audience and giving them information that's really compelling to them. And your estimate was that you kind of have to pop in somebody's head about every 7 seconds. Does that seem right?
I think so. I think you need to constantly be surprising, engaging, like setting things up and paying them off, because there's a lot of competition out there. It's really easy to just stop watching a video and move on to something else. We've never in human history had the amount of options that we have for entertainment and communication as we do today. So in order to keep the attention span of anyone online on their phone or, sitting at a desk for 12 minutes, 13 minutes, then every 30 seconds better be kind of something new, or it's got to be going somewhere. Like why am I still watching this sort of thing, if that makes sense?
It does. I have a predilection for the monologues, right? Like that Infocom thing from before. That could have been 2 solid minutes about this company and how it developed and how it failed and the crazy story about how it failed. That comes up in a lot of different videos, and you pretty much look at it and just say, hey, this is a monologue that is only interesting to you and like 7 other people in the world. It's true, though. Can you put these 2 pages into one good sentence?
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm bored already. But it really, I think at the end of the day, at least for me and for Vsauce too, is I feel like the audience, at least, or maybe it's just me, I'm constantly asking, so what? So what? Why do I need to know this? Why am I still listening to you? Why am I still watching this video? So what? What does that have to do with me? How does this help me at all? Like going on a rant or a monologue about Infocom and the history of this company from 35 years ago. Well, I don't know. Guess what? Most of the people watching this video were not born then. Like, they don't care. What does this have to do with me? Like, I'm 9 years old. I just got finished watching, Pew News, and now I'm watching Vsauce too. So, you better tell me or continually remind me what this has to do with me.
They just got out of boot camp. From entering the 9-year-old army.
Yeah.
Well, the process you just described is what goes into making that compelling. Pretty much every sentence. And the overall concept here, the conversation that I have with other creators who are developing their channels, this comes up a lot, is like, this sounds strange, but it's actually not enough to be good. It's not enough to be right. It's not enough to do whatever you do well. And you'd think that it would be, okay? But it really isn't. There's another level to it that you just touched on about making this interesting, making it relevant to them. So you see this with musicians a lot. You'll watch a video where somebody is killing it, whether they're singing or playing the guitar or whatever it is. They're amazing, and they've got like 93 views. You're thinking, how is this possible? Or you'll read a comment on an article that's, or a video that's about science or politics or something that's fact-based. And it's clear that this person has tremendous knowledge that they can express really well. So they're right about it. Why isn't their channel blowing up? So there's a lot more to it. You've got to take the results of this rabbit hole deep dive commitment to every discipline kind of thing, and then put it in a format that really resonates with people. And that includes a bunch of add-ons on the videos, doesn't it? Really kind of crafting that viewer experience.
Well, yeah, you have to have the visuals be compelling. You have to have, for instance, with the Human series, I always tried to have the set compelling. So I would sit in a kiddie pool, or I would sit in a ball pit, or I would sit next to an inflatable dragon toy. There was always some sort of consideration of like, what is the audience looking at? Is that interesting? Is it just me in front of the same background? Or, should I make it look more interesting? So the set, I always wanted to make compelling. The visuals, you know, the visuals it's a visual medium. It's video. So what am I looking at? Like, it needs to be visually entertaining. And I think that's part of the development over the years of shows like Thought Glass, for instance. I don't know if people remember that show, but Thought Glass was a show that I used to do that I shot behind a gigantic pane of glass. It was essentially a whiteboard on wheels, but instead of being a whiteboard, it was glass. And the amount of like tedious pre-production and post-production that went into the show made it kind of unsustainable over time, which is why the show stopped. But essentially, I would present a video behind a pane of glass, and then whatever I was talking about, I had printed out icons onto translucent paper, like overhead projector paper with a sticker on it. I'd put double-sided tape on a printed out overhead projector paper of, like, say, an orange or a rocket ship or something. And as I was talking about the orange, I would stick it on the glass in front of me. And then Eric Langley, who does the VFX for Vsauce, would animate that sticker. So then all of a sudden, you know, this orange could then morph into a lemon, and then it could morph into a tree or whatever. And he actually won an award, an editing award for this show.
I didn't know that.
He won he won a Webby, I believe, for best editing years ago for Thought Glass, because it was amazing. He would turn these stickers into animated objects. But why did I do that? Why did I go to such lengths to talk about, you know, why oranges are called oranges? Because I wanted it to look cool. That's all. I mean, I wanted it to look different and fresh and unique and stand out from the pack. And also, part of being a creative person to me is I want to see what I'm able to do. I don't know how to articulate that in any like higher or more intelligent way, but a lot of it is just, can I make this idea a reality? Let's find out.
The cool thing about you telling the Thought Glass story is that I remember the complexity of that era. And you left out the part about how you shot that in one take. That was part of it as well, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. So that was all in one take too, because there couldn't be any edits on me, because so I would have to place the stickers and take them down, all kind of choreographed along with what I'm talking about. Yes, all in one take, just because if there were jump cuts and stuff, it would look weird with me behind the glass and the animation. So yeah, it was it was a complicated show.
That added levels of complexity that are just out of this world. I mean, anybody who's ever recorded a video on their phone knows how difficult it is to get that right the first time. Because everything goes wrong, as it always does. And to be able to pull off something on the level that you just described and do it in one clean take, that's insane. So the reason that this is so cool to me is because it stands in contrast to what you're doing now with the whiteboard that you invented. And I really love this concept because it shows people that your content is going to sink or swim based on really just how good it is, how compelling it is. Even though good's not enough, in the end, you've got to have a decent video. And the whiteboard angle, the demos that are in front of you, they're much simpler than the craziest pane of glass system in the world, but they work really well with all the information that you're putting out there. That's a pretty remarkable thing. How did you go from a mindset of outrageous complexity and fantastic stuff to something that did even better in a simpler way?
Well, I mean, all of this is just trial and error, and it's developing over the years. And that's one thing that I always tell people when they ask, how do I get started? And it's like, just start and don't stop. I don't know how to describe it any better than that, because it's still a journey for me. You know, I've been doing YouTube since 2011 full time, about, I don't know, 8 years. And I'm still like, well, I don't know. How did this work? How's the next thing going to work? I have no idea. You're never done, but that's what makes it exciting and interesting. And that's what makes it, I wonder what I can do next. Let's see, what this looks like. So the development of scaling back the complexity honestly was a combination of, one, I kind of felt like I had pushed the complexity as far as I could, and I didn't know how much more complex I could get. So to me, it's not interesting to keep doing the same thing forever. I want to try new things. And the other part was, quite honestly, I wanted to upload more frequently. And those complex videos that took 6-7 weeks to make, it's like, man, it's a bummer that I can only put out a small handful of videos a year like this. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people who would prefer that. But for me, like, I'd much rather be able to put out a video, every 2 to 3 weeks instead of every 6 to 7 weeks.
I want to jump back to something that you just said about people getting started. That's the number one thing that people have asked me for years and years now when I talk to them pretty much anywhere, and they find out that I work in the YouTube arena and work with creators. It's like, oh, I've got this great idea. I've wanted to do this thing forever, but I don't know how to get started. And they never like the answer, which is, it doesn't matter, just start, just do something. Because all the planning that you're going to do is probably going to be wrong. It's not going to work out that way. I'm not saying that you press record on the camera and then just make everything up on the spot and see what happens when you press stop. But really overanalyzing and planning and thinking too hard, that's just not how any of this development works. What you described makes me think of how crazy it would be if we did this in any other arena. So let's say you ask a 5 or 6-year-old what they want to do when they grow up, and they say, I want to be an author. And you tell that person, okay, what you do is think about this, overanalyze this, never practicing any of it. Do not write a single sentence until you're in a position to sit down and somehow produce a novel that's going to be a bestseller. This is insane. It's idiotic. And we know it doesn't work that way. That kid starts writing simple sentences and reading a lot of books. And their writing develops and changes over time, and they stop making certain mistakes, and they start to develop a style. And maybe years down the line, they can put all that together in a book. It works with language. It works with pretty much everything we ever do. So why wouldn't it be the same with a video process? Developing a channel.
It is the same, and I think almost that there really aren't great ideas. There are only great creations, because who knows what an idea is? It's just a thought. It's just a prediction. It's just, an intangible, maybe this is good. I mean, no matter what the greatest idea you've ever had is really not worth, it's not worth any more than the most successful mediocre creation you've ever done. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, when I spoke to, I had a call with an agent about a book, the book that I started writing over the summer, and I told her the idea, and essentially her reaction was, okay, you need to write it, because what am I going to do with that idea? I'm going to take your great idea to a book publisher and be like, well, hold on to your hats, because here's the most amazing book idea that you've ever heard in your entire life. Like, that's just not how, and no book publisher is going to be like, wow, here's an advance, Kevin.
In the very first thing, if that happens and they do think it's the most amazing thing that they've ever heard in their life, about 7 seconds later, they say, send it over because I want to read it. So you're going to have to do it anyway.